Welcome to the informal classroom.
Woohoo. Some people from the last session too. Cool. Great.
So this is your opportunity, everyone who's here, to ask specific questions of Rudy or Ty or.
I asked some of my questions earlier during the earlier presentation. And I'm going to ask just one question. I'll let other people ask questions so they can get into it. But I want to ask you the same question I asked Simon in the module 1, and it's regarding teaching and switching from remote learning. I'm switching from physically being in the classroom to remote learning. So, what has been the biggest challenges that first of all, how have you pivoted the way you teach brand ID physically in the classroom to pivoting to remote learning only? What are those what challenges have you faced, and how have you and your students adapted to remote learning since we've been doing it over a year now?
Yeah, I think one of the most difficult things in the beginning was seeing that the students weren't feeding off each other as much as possible. There's techniques and things that I'm using, that are new, but if I had to prioritize, what's the most difficult part is that the students are having a hard time feeding off each other. And ArtCenter's got that momentum. When you see the students down the hall and you realize, oh my gosh, John just finished his project and it's Monday and it's due Thursday, I haven't even started. That gets them to get going. They're scared of that. And they see the work, and then they also interact with each other and show work in between that. So in between the week, and that's happening very little, very, very little, basically zero in my experience. And I'm still trying to find ways to get them to interact more, doing more one-on-ones, spending time in the classroom for them to critique each other. But I'm having to do a little more check-in than I think I want to do during the week, just hey, do you have any questions? I've always used online platforms for my classes, even when they were physical. So I still use Basecamp. I use Basecamp for, keeping in touch with them. I put the weekly schedule there. I put everything on there. Some of the things that I'm doing new, that I'm doing more of, is I'm able, and this is an advantage of remote, is I'm able to talk and sketch at the same time. So on Zoom and whatever platform it is, now I can not only just tell them where it should go or sketch an idea, but I can also verbally say it together, rather than before.
Are you using the Zoom Animate tool to do that, or
Zoom Animate? Yeah.
Or do you use an external tool to do that? So what I just did, what you should consider doing. ArtCenter has made it for everybody else who's attending, who's in the session right now. ArtCenter is trying to make it more, give faculty more tools to bring the experience of the physical classroom into a digital space. You can never really replicate that, obviously, right? And so they have a thing called Studio in the Box, right? It's basically our equipment room has created a studio setup, so that including 3 GoPro cameras, studio lights, and a switcher that you can switch back and forth in those, and actually have more, and you can do more with the Zoom. And I picked up mine yesterday. It's sitting right over there on the floor, and I can't wait to dive into it. It's a little bit complicated, not too complicated to set up, but in terms of using it, you got to sort of test it a little bit. But for me, I found that sitting in front of the monitor for 5 hours, and I'm sure many of you guys have, I'm seeing people shaking their heads, and they can identify with this. Sitting in front of the monitor in a studio class, even when you're lecturing and then critiquing, demonstrating, and things of that nature, it's a long time to do that. But what I've been trying to do, and I think that's what the Studio in the Box will do for me, and Rudy, I'm not sure if you should think about this, is give me another tool that I can use to make that experience a little bit different when I want to, especially when I want to sketch, right? I want to sketch physically. I used to sketch in the classroom on a whiteboard, right? You guys remember whiteboards, right? You sketch ideas on a whiteboard, right? So I want that feeling of being able to do organically, talk about my ideas and sketch those ideas on the whiteboard. And so having a studio in the box would allow a camera to be on a wall that I can use and use a whiteboard to do that. So I don't have to just be sitting all the time, right?
Ty, you're far more advanced than I am. I still use the tracing paper pad, and I rip up things. I'm not even up to the whiteboard. So
you did that when I was your student. I used to get pissed off when you used to do that too.
But I used to rip your work off, and then I take a piece of tracing paper and go over his work, and then take his work. And see, I miss that. I miss ripping the student work and repositioning. No, I don't mean in a nasty way. I just mean like, what if you did this to the letter form? Cut it apart. Put it together,
okay.
Stick it down. And do that. No. I don't rip it off. I never rip work off the wall and said this sucks or something like that.
Well, what I will say about that, Gloria, is the fact that being able to sit next to your professor or instructor and have them physically show you what they're talking about is so much more intuitive than doing it digitally.
Yeah,
it's very difficult. And the studio in the box, and I see people, we're very lucky. There are certain classes, I think, digital, ID systems, advanced ID systems, Rudy, all of that can, even though it's still different than being in the classroom, but imagine what it's like when you're doing a studio typography class, a letterpress class. I see Stephanie's here.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry, it no matter what, it is not the same. You can never ever reproduce hands-on physicalness. So that's had to be put on hold, unfortunately. Although I'm using the studio in the box for a one-day course in like 2 weeks or something. And it's true. I mean, you can set up 3 different cameras. You can have one set up real close so you can see someone sketching. I think it does make a difference when you see someone working with a pencil.
Yeah.
Than a digital.
The other thing that I do a lot more now is video. Like I record myself talking over some of the crits. So like there's like little elements, and I'll tell them like, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna actually record this, and record myself, record the screen, and then I'll put it up on Basecamp as a link so that they can refer to it, and then also use it in the next terms. Like, okay, this is how, in my class, the CD5, I have them sort of do a 3-act presentation, the setup of the strategy, the meat of it, and then like what's next. And so I explain what that looks like. And I don't have to do that every single time now. So I just did it one time. I did it in Keynote, and I just drew a box, did 3 boxes, and I actually sketch in Keynote while I was recording, save it, and I put it up in Basecamp. And I talk about it over screen share, but then I say, like, it's just really like overview. I said, for more information, just go and watch the video later. Yeah. And I will save them, break up the time a little bit more. I do that a lot, and even crits as well. I'll like, download something, open up Photoshop, just photo hack it real quick, explain to them like, no, look, this is what I'm saying. Like the logo is too big. Look what happens when your type is too big. Look what happens when I do this, and like just taking that, just scaling it down, even like, which is with a flat Photoshop image. It's enough to get the idea across. It doesn't look great, but it's enough for them to go, oh, I get it. I get what he's saying. And I record that and send it to them during the week too.
Hey, and by the way, if anyone has something to say, you can say, hey, I got something to say.
I want to get to a question that Doris actually had on her. I want to get to one of the questions that Doris actually put in the chat, and I think it's a really good question, Rudy. Because do the students develop the company or brand's name, or are they expanding brands that they are that are redesigned?
They are expanding companies that they're already existing. What will happen sometimes is through the thinking of the strategy, they realize that the name doesn't work. And then I'll have them get to that. But naming is so hard that like I try to, and coming up with a company is like from scratch. So I don't even offer that. If they get to the point where they hit a wall and then go, this company doesn't fit. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't fit. Like Venmo, if you want to redo Venmo, you want to find something, I don't know, whatever the strategy is, she wants to redefine Venmo, and she realized like Venmo isn't a sticking point or whatever. Then she goes and thinks about that, or he rethinks that. But I try to like really limit that as much as possible, because they don't start working with the logo for a while.
Yeah.
Because they're chasing names.
Well, the other thing, if you, when I used to do the ID class, is sometimes you're not changing the parent company, but you might be talking to them about finding a new market. So it's a different way to strategize. Like here is, you know, Amazon now wants to do something that's still Amazon, but maybe addresses a different product or something like that.
I know Milka has a question. You've got to, right?
Oh, she always has
Milka
questions.
has a question. I'm putting the pressure on you, Milka, right now. Go ahead. Go for it.
I know. I had the opportunity of working in-house in the past few years, and it's a whole different ballgame, I'm noticing. And I've noticed that my responsibility as a designer has become educating the stakeholders and the clients that I'm working with as to how does the power of good design, not just design, can empower the company and elevate them to the next step. So that has been my challenge. And the other thing has been another challenge for me is I miss you guys so much. And what I mean by that, is I'm working as a creative director with these, like for instance, I'm working with a company, I don't want to name them, but they're doing mass production stuff for Amazon. And it's all about copy and paste and quickly send it out the door. And I'm like, I crunch and I'm like, what happened to the beauty of designing from the ground and making something amazing and special, making an impact? So that these are some of the challenges that I've been facing. So I don't know if they're questions, but they're thoughts.
That's what happens when you leave design school.
That's what happens when you leave school.
Can I come back, please?
or you have to somehow, and we'll end on this, you have to understand, sometimes it's a harder decision to become like a Vanessa Eckstein, who has made her decision, I'm going to do this path no matter how hard it is.
Yep.
And I think that's very difficult. Well, we have to get going. But anyway, thank you guys and enjoy your night. And thank you for coming. Stay healthy and stay
Thank you,
safe.
everyone.
So much. I'm having my
Healthy
dream
and sane.
from
Thank you,
the
Gloria. Thank you, Rudy. Thank you.
Bye.